All Blacks have got the job done over the Wallabies, 36 points to nil. It was a bit of a response from last week's drubbing over in Perth, and a lot of you guys called it. They said, the All Blacks aren't going to lose 2 games in a row. If you poke the bear, you're going to get the claws. So the All Blacks came back and, did a job on the Wallabies. I went to the game. I wore the All Blacks gear like you guys suggested, but I was in a blue poncho for the most part because it was pretty wet before the game started. It was pretty wet at half time. So, but still a good crowd. It was a sellout crowd, so that's always a good thing to see, even if it was pretty miserable weather. The game itself didn't actually rain that badly, but half time and before the game started did kind of pelt down. So, I watched it live. I haven't watched it back on TV as yet, so you guys will have to let me know some of the stuff that I missed. But I took my little notepad to the game, and I'll go over some of the stuff that I saw. You guys can let me know some of the stuff I missed from the telly version as well. But All Blacks taking points and the Wallabies making mistakes was kind of my main take from the game. And Wallabies started off with a kickoff mistake. It didn't go 10 metres, so that was immediately putting the All Blacks on the front foot. They eventually, after a couple of penalties, slotted a 3-pointer, which was in range from Mo'unga. Wallabies, on the other hand, first time they got the ball, they did a forward pass. So it was just error within the first kind of opening 5 minutes. And at that point, I was already thinking, this could be a long night for the Wallabies if they're going to play like that. If you're going to come to Eden Park, you need to play at your best. Can't be making errors like that against the All Blacks at Eden Park. That being said, the All Blacks defence was still pretty good. Like Korobedi was going towards the corner at one point, steaming down. This was the far end from me. Reese looked like he put in a pretty good tackle on him, so good coverage because he and Bridge had a lot of pressure on them having come in for the incumbents Ben Smith and Rico Ioane, so they needed to put in big efforts, and they both kind of did. Wallabies go through some phases. They win a penalty though, and it hits the post. So when they take the shot at goal, Liliafano can't kick it over. 20 minutes, the All Blacks lose their own lineout. Wallabies go again many phases. They get advantage. They get a penalty, and again they take a shot at goal and miss. So again, I'm thinking Wallabies making mistakes. You got to get all those points you can. And they weren't doing it. That being said, it wasn't all negative because at one point down my end, the All Blacks put a kick through and Hodge chased it back. And was it ALB that was bearing down on him, and he kind of managed to duck under him? It was a good bit of get out of jail work from Reece Hodge there in the corner. So that was kind of keeping them alive. Later on, Laulala got hit in the face with the ball. He didn't know the pass was coming his way. And then they conceded a scrum penalty. But on 20 minutes, Mo'unga gets the first try of the game. Hodge can't take a ball past to him. He drops it. And Mo'unga's just Johnny on the spot, picks it up. A good bit of anticipation, good hands, good bit of gas. And he goes over for the try and he converts it. So it's 10-0. He's got all the points at that point. 31 minutes, Aaron Smith gets a try. Barrett, this is kind of one of the advantages of having a fullback, I guess, on the kick return. He gives it to Bridge. Bridge gets it to Aaron Smith. And Aaron Smith just dives over for the try. He did a huge dive, which I'm not that much of a fan of because on a slippery night, that ball, you've seen that there's videos on YouTube of guys dropping the ball over the line, but it didn't happen in this case. So 17-0, a bit of showboating, I guess. 35 minutes, Nasarani, Wallabies are on kind of in their own half, but he runs the ball way up the guts, kind of out of nowhere, so the Wallabies aren't dead and buried, but then Kane just turns him over. But around that period, the ref gives Dane Coles a warning for coming in when there was a bit of a scuffle, and he tells him, behave yourself. And a minute later, he judo throws Nick White from the back of a ruck. It is like brain explosion, dumb. Red mist is what the guys on the radio said. Just dumb. And he gets yellow carded for it. I mean, coming off a week when Steve Hansen was calling the players, some of their decisions a bit dumb, and they suffered the price of having a man in the bin, or at least in the send off. You go and do that. It was pretty dumb. But in the end, it doesn't end up costing anything because during that yellow card period, the All Blacks are still looking pretty tidy. Their scrum with 7 men manages to win a penalty. Mo'unga all but slots it. He pushes it to the right. And they go into half-time. The All Blacks have had less possession in that first half, 44%, but they've had more run meters, 302 to 230, and their tackling percentage is just below 90%, which is test match level awesome stuff. The Wallabies are at 80, which is like still solid, but almost 90 is better than 80. Second half, and they've still got the man advantage in the second half because the Coles are still in the bin. 7-man scrum again, and they get a penalty from it, so the Wallabies not able to convert with the man over, not even really able to generate much in the way of chances. So the yellow card period ends with no score. Alatoa goes off in the second half after having a knock with Sonny Bill. I haven't read anything about him being like long-term injured, so that's good news. And speaking of Sonny Bill, he gets a try on 46 minutes. All Black scrum again looking good, and he goes over. Ryder tries to hold him up, but he can't get it done. Good effort, but Sonny Bill definitely gets the ball down at the end. It's 24-0. I wrote some notes that the Wallabies are finally starting to build some pressure after being under the gun. Then they lose their own line out. So again, it's just mistakes. They're their own worst enemies, kind of in a way. 66 minutes is probably the try of the match. Sever Reese. The guy must have played soccer because Geordie Barrett puts a kick through. Reese, in pursuit of it, doesn't get his hands on it. He just kicks it forward without batting an eyelid. It's like he's at full tilt. The ball's bouncing along, and he just keeps kicking it ahead. And he's got the gas to get there first and force it. So the first time he touches it is when he's forcing it down. Amazing bit of skills. Again, he hasn't done his World Cup chances any harm with that. 31-0. He almost gets another try a minute later, but they were playing advantage for a knock on. So he got an intercept, and he was gone like lightning again, but not to be. And 76 minutes, George Bridge gets a try. All came from a Savia turnover, and they had men over until Leonard Brown with an offload, and that's how it finished 36-0. So yeah, mistakes from the Wallabies. There was loads of them. I'm talking knock-ons, missed penalties, their scrum going backwards, their maul often going backwards, handling errors, missed tackles at times. It was pretty poor, whereas the All Blacks, their kicking was effective. They were putting a lot of big hits, and Kieran Reid was angry. Yeah, and Savia with the turnovers, Kane with the turnovers. There was lots to like about that All Blacks performance. I mean, again, it wasn't flawless, but there was still a lot to like about it. Concerningly, Richie Mo'unga did go off just before the hour mark. He kind of got dumped over the sideline, and it looked like he landed pretty heavily on his shoulder, but Steve Hansen's saying he'll be all good, so we'll take the man at his word. Hopefully it's just a bit of a stinger or something like that. We will see. Full-time stats, 5 tries to 0 is the main one, 36-0. 521 run meters to 459, so the Wallabies weren't that far off the pace. It's just the errors that were really killer. Possession was 50-50, territory slightly in favour of the All Blacks, nothing much in it. Tackling percentage is probably a big one. The All Blacks stayed just below 90 with 88%, 120 tackles. The Wallabies 78% with 84 tackles. That's not test match level. You can't be tackling at that level. It needs to be lifted. ALB had 90 run meters and 7 defenders beaten. Kurtley Beale had 80 run meters and no defenders beaten. So how he did that, I guess it's a lot of running the ball back from fullback. Rodder had 20 out of 22 tackles. Whitelock was the top guy for the All Blacks with 18 out of 20. Reid had like 14. So some of the veterans kind of stepped up for the All Blacks, and some of the new guys put in a big shift as well. Cheekily, I did take a little bit of footage just before and during the game. I'll put that up on Patreon. But cheekily, the cameras did show Wallabies fans kind of leaving for the exits with like 10 minutes to go. And I tried to get a few shots of it. All Blacks fans were leaving as well. It was a pretty yucky night, and people wanted to get to their cars or get to the train or bus before everybody else. So there were All Blacks fans leaving, not in droves, but there weren't Wallabies fans leaving in droves either. Plenty of them were sitting around. That was a bit of cheeky camera work from the producers. They were All Blacks fans going for it, getting for the exit. Got to go home, have a cup of tea. But yeah, overall, I mean, took my mum to the game, as I said, I think in the preview. It's her first All Blacks game, so that's not a bad way to start, apart from the rain. 36-0 is a pretty good shift. So the Bledisloe stays in New Zealand. There's nothing else to be had between these two teams until if they meet at the World Cup. But Yeah, the All Blacks have still got a game against Tonga, which is apparently not yet sold out. So if you're anywhere near Hamilton, you should be buying tickets. I'm going to go to that one as well. Take the wife down to Hamilton for that one. That should be a bit of fun in the lead up to the World Cup. You guys let me know your thoughts on the game. As I said, it was a pretty one-sided one. But being at the game, I'm sure there's some stuff that I missed that you guys will be able to give me some insights on. So, yeah, you guys let me know your thoughts, and I will talk to you again soon. See you later.